Jovan Buha! Buha!
Yo, I'm Jovan Buha, Lakers beat writer for The Athletic, and welcome to episode 3 of Buha's Block, my new Lakers podcast. Now, this episode is something I teased last week. I want to get into ranking the Lakers' 9 potential opponents in the West, be it in the play-in tournament or the first round of the playoffs. So I'm breaking it down into 2 groups. We have the 5 potential play-in opponents, which are the Phoenix Suns, the Sacramento Kings, the New Orleans Pelicans, the Dallas Mavericks, and the Golden State Warriors. And then the second group is the top 4 seeds in the West, which are Oklahoma City, Denver, Minnesota, and the Clippers. So essentially, because the Lakers are looking like a play-in team for now, that could change. They have won 12 of 17, but realistically, they're probably going to be at best about the 7th seed. It's going to be tough to jump all the teams in this range. So I wanted to look at the potential matchups against each one of them and rank them from best matchup to worst matchup. Then assuming the Lakers get into the playoffs, I'm going to look at the top 4 seeds just because the highest seed the Lakers could possibly be at this point is number 5. So looking at that top 4, just ranking them from best to worst matchup. And for some context with this, I've been working on this for several days. I've been poring over some film. I've been looking at the head-to-head numbers. I've been looking at each team's statistical profile, how they match up with the Lakers in terms of strengths and weaknesses. I also have been polling people for the last couple days. Last night at the Lakers Timberwolves game, I was talking to Lakers people. I was talking to agents. I was talking to media members. I was talking to scouts. So just running some of my rankings by different people and maybe making some adjustments or tweaks or just listening to the counterpoints that they had. But my rankings were approved for the most part. I kind of aggregated all that information into a list that I'm fairly confident in. I think I do have one semi-controversial opinion in the top 4, but we will get into that. So without further ado, let's start with the 5 play-in teams, ranking them from the best to worst matchup for the Lakers. So matchup number 1 for the Lakers, in my opinion, is the Dallas Mavericks, and I'm going to go through why. I mean, first off, it's crazy that a team with Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving is potentially the easiest matchup for the Lakers. That's one top 5, if not top 3 guy, and another top 30, top 25 guy, depending on the night, in Kyrie. And to me, that encapsulates how deep and treacherous the West is. And I'm not even sold on Dallas being the easiest matchup necessarily, but I will get into why. So the Dallas Mavericks, 36-26, number 8 in the West, home record of 19-15. And the only reason that matters is if the Lakers are on the road for an elimination game. They are 6th in offense, 22nd in defense, 15th in net rating. Season series is 2-1 in Dallas's favor, but the Lakers actually have a plus 12 in the season series margin. Dallas's record against teams 500 and above is 16-23. That is the worst on this list. Actually, the Warriors might be worse. Yeah, Warriors are worse. So second worst outside of the Warriors. Now, Dallas is 22-15 with Luka and Kyrie in the lineup, which is a little bit better of a win percentage. So with those two, they're probably more of like a 6-ish seed. They have had a lot of injuries. They've been one of the most injury-riddled playoff teams. So this is a group that could have a better record if they were healthier. And I don't love the idea of going against Luka Doncic in a single elimination format where he could just drop a 50-point triple-double on you and end your season. However, Dallas is 28th in field goal percentage allowed at the rim, and they are 28th in rebound percentage overall. So I view them as almost a worse version of OKC in some ways. Basically, many of the same reasons that people love the OKC matchup for the Lakers should apply here, except they're worse defensively. They're just as bad in terms of rebounding. So assuming that Jared Vanderbilt is back and able to check Luka Doncic for 30 to 35 minutes, maybe the Lakers could even use Gabe Vincent against Kyrie Irving, although they'll have Austin Reeves, they'll have Spencer Dinwiddie, they'll have Cam Reddish. I just think the Lakers have a little bit more perimeter defensive talent to throw at those guys than they did earlier in the season, assuming everyone is healthy. And then on top of that, with how good the Lakers offense is, how bad Dallas's defense and rebounding is, I just see this as a game where AD and LeBron could live at the rim, live in the paint, and dominate the smaller Mavericks front line. Now, we've yet to see these two teams match up in their current forms, and we're not going to see it until a potential play-in matchup. But against a group of really good teams, I think Dallas is the most vulnerable. They do have maybe a higher ceiling than a couple of the teams I'm about to get into, but I also think they have a lower floor than some of those teams. So right now, I'm tentatively putting Dallas at number 1. I don't love it. I don't feel great about it. But again, that speaks to just how deep and talented the West is. Team number 2 is the New Orleans Pelicans. And this is an interesting one because on paper, they are by far the best team in the play-in mix. I don't think people realize how good the Pelicans have been this season. They're top 8 in both offense and defense, and they are 4th in net rating behind only the Oklahoma City Thunder, Boston Celtics, and Minnesota Timberwolves. So on paper, the Pelicans actually profile as like a legit title contender, which is pretty wild. But they're the 5 seed right now, so they're 39-25, home record of 18-12, 8th in offense, 6th in defense, 4th in net rating. Season series is 2-1 Lakers. That includes, if you remember, that 40-point drubbing in the in-season tournament semifinal. So the margin is plus 41 Lakers. Lakers have blown out the Pelicans twice. The Pelicans have blown them out once. Record versus teams 500 and above is 20-16, so they're above 500. Now, reasons why I put New Orleans number 2 when, again, they profile as the best team among this play-in group are, one, if the Lakers are playing them in the play-in, that means New Orleans has dropped out of number 5 and has been, for whatever reason, whether the teams around them just doing better or them treading water and not playing as well, like that means they've fallen in the standings. So that would indicate that they're not entering the play-in mix with a level of momentum. In theory, given that they are the highest seed right now out of this group, if they do, right now they would not be in the play-in tournament. They'd be the number 5 seed facing the Clippers in round 1, but they still are within that mix. That they're not too far ahead of the rest of the group to avoid the play-in. So if for whatever reason New Orleans suffers an injury or they just go on a losing skid, like you want to play a team that's maybe not doing as well entering the play-in. 2, in rewatching some of the film, the Pelicans just don't have a great matchup for LeBron. Like they have some of the best wing defenders in the league. There's a reason why they are such a good defense, despite not having traditional rim protection with Jonas Valanciunas and Zion and Larry Nance Jr. Like Larry Nance is probably the best option, although he plays obviously a lot of small ball center. Sometimes we'll play the 4 a little bit depending on the matchup. But in looking at guys like a Herb Jones, a Brandon Ingram, a Dyson Daniels, I know he's out, Trey Murphy, like those guys are just skinny and wiry and lanky, and that works against a lot of wings. That works against even some bigger, stronger wings. But LeBron is such a beast that I think it's a bad matchup. And he's gone off in all 3 games and really just been able to bulldoze his way to the rim. Now, I know we haven't seen the same level of force from LeBron recently, in part because of the ankle injury nagging him a little bit. But I think in this matchup, you would see more of that. I just don't love any of their defensive matchups against LeBron in particular. Additionally, they are 21st in field goal percentage allowed at the rim, which is bottom 10. They're also a below average team in terms of 3-point volume. They do shoot the 3 well. They are 5th in 3-point percentage overall. But I think the teams that tend to give the Lakers problems are teams that shoot and make a lot of 3s. They can win the math battle against the Lakers, even if the Lakers are shooting above 50%, even if the Lakers are getting to the free throw line. If you make enough 3s, you can just win a shootout against the Lakers, unless they're having one of their hot shooting nights. So I look at New Orleans as a group where, yes, the offense is good, but I think the Lakers will be able to dictate the terms of engagement as they've been able to in 2 of the 3 matchups. And look, this is not an easy matchup by any means. I don't think any of these matchups are easy. New Orleans, again, profiles as the best team in this group, and they have blown the Lakers out several times in recent seasons in New Orleans. That has been a tough place for the Lakers to play. So the thought of going to New Orleans, I think would be tough for the Lakers. I just think given the Lakers' success against the Pelicans this season, this is a more advantageous matchup for them. Now, number 3 is the Sacramento Kings. And I know what some of you are thinking. You're surprised that they're this low. You thought maybe they'd be the hardest or the second hardest. But for me, I've been a Kings skeptic for a bit. I'm not going to go full Mike Trudell, but I haven't been a believer in them. I picked them last year to lose in the first round. This year, I'm picking them again to lose in the first round, regardless of who they're facing, even if they're matched up with a banged up Minnesota team or an undersized OKC team. I think both of those teams would beat Sacramento in a 7-game series. So I could be wrong. And look, they're 3-0 against the Lakers, so they've clearly played them well. But let's get into the Kings. They're 36-27. They're number 7 in the West, so they dropped last night with the loss to the Rockets. They are 17 and 11 at home, 13th in offense, 20th in defense, 17th in net rating. The season series is 3-0 Kings with the margin plus 30 in Sacramento's favor. The Kings are 20-20 against teams 500 and above. Kings are 6-1 against the Lakers over the past 2 seasons in the Darvin Ham era. Domantas Sabonis is 9-0 against Anthony Davis and has just outplayed him consistently in these matchups over the last couple of years. Now, they are 20th in field goal percentage allowed at the rim. And the reason I keep referencing this stat in particular is just because the Lakers are such a rim-heavy team. That is their game plan is, as Darvin likes to say, live and love in the paint. So like the Lakers are trying to get downhill, and that opens up the rest of everything, right? So teams start to collapse, and that's when you get your kick-out passes and the threat of AD rolling to the rim or the threat of an AD post-up. That's when you get the basket cuts or the weak side shots. And so teams that can't defend the rim, like a Dallas, like a New Orleans, like a Sacramento, those are all better matchups for the Lakers because that plays into their offensive strengths. And right now, given that the Lakers have been an elite offense and a bad defense for over 2 months, I think teams that can't stop them from doing what they want to do offensively are advantageous matchups. So the Kings are an elite 3-point shooting team. They're 4th in 3-point makes per 100 possessions, 5th in attempts, and 14th in percentage. And we know that the Lakers have yet to figure out how to slow down De'Aaron Fox. He's been killing them for years, but especially the last couple seasons. Sabonis outplays AD head-to-head. Just like the Pelicans on paper are the best team among this group, the Kings are arguably the worst. If I'm looking at Dallas versus Sacramento, I would much rather face Fox and Sabonis in an elimination game than Luka and Kyrie. But then you look at the way that these matchups have played out, and I think you have to factor in the strengths and weaknesses of these groups. And the Kings' 5-out offense, their combination of speed and athleticism and shooting, and them having some bigger wings who don't shut down LeBron, but they do have a bit of a bigger front court that throwing a Harrison Barnes, throwing a Keegan Murray, a Trey Lyles, they have enough wing size where they're not going to get completely obliterated against LeBron. They also have their 3-guard looks with 3 speed guards that really gives the Lakers problems. So this one is more matchup based than actual team based because, again, if I'm ranking the teams in the West, I might have Sacramento 10th in terms of like my confidence in them making a run in the West, but I can't look past their success against the Lakers. Like maybe the Lakers conquer their demons on Wednesday and beat the Kings, and that gives me the confidence to put the Kings a little bit lower. Maybe New Orleans jumps them, maybe Dallas jumps them. Like we'll see how that game goes. But for now, this is me kind of splitting the difference of matchup wise. This has been the worst matchup for the Lakers among the play-in teams. But in terms of actual team quality and my confidence in the star power and their ability to match LeBron and AD in an elimination game, I'm putting the Kings in the middle at number 3. Number 4 is the Golden State Warriors, and this one is a bit of a legacy pick for me, but Golden State is 33-30. They're the number 10 seed. They're a game and a half behind the Lakers, technically tied in the loss column, but the Lakers have 3 more wins, which does help. Warriors' home record is 17-17. They're 12th in offense, 18th in defense, 13th in net rating. Season series is 1-1. Plus 17 margin for the Warriors. But remember, that's largely because of the game that LeBron James didn't play in. And you had the double overtime thriller. So the teams have 2 more matchups, both in LA, to close out the season. Those are 2 huge games, in addition to obviously the Lakers game against the Kings coming up. Warriors record against teams 500 or above is 14-25, which is the worst record on this list. Now, they did miss Draymond Green for a chunk of the season because of his suspension. Multiple suspensions. They did miss Chris Paul, who was playing really well for them, one of their plus-minus leaders coming off the bench. And they've had up and down seasons with Klay Thompson and Andrew Wiggins navigating those players' roles, and then having guys like Jonathan Kuminga, Brandon Podziemski, and Moses Moody ascending and sort of navigating all that. Even rookie Trace Jackson Davis has played much better lately in comparison to like a guy like Kevon Looney, who's been largely phased out of the rotation when at full strength. There's a couple reasons why I have the Warriors a little bit higher than they should be on paper. And one X factor here is going to be home court advantage, because if the Lakers end up at number 9 and just host the Warriors, obviously that's better than having to go on the road. And eventually the Lakers would have to go on the road. If they did win that game, they'd play the loser of the 7-8 matchup on the road. But potentially facing the Warriors at home does give the Lakers an edge in this matchup. But there's still so much time left where, like, if the Warriors beat them twice head to head, for example, the Warriors would likely leap them. Now, the other thing that's an unknown variable right now is Steph Curry's ankle injury. He isn't expected to miss much time, but even a little bit of time, and the Warriors dropping some of those games could almost ensure that they end up being the 10 seed. So this is one where I'm basing it more on my fear of the team itself rather than the seeding, because right now it looks like the Lakers will likely be ahead of the Warriors in the standings. It's like the one team you can kind of say that about in comparison with the Lakers. Let's go through some of the notes with Golden State. So since Draymond has been starting at the 5, which was coincidentally the matchup against the Lakers that went to double overtime, that was the first game he returned to the starting lineup. They put him at the center. Golden State is 14-7, which is the 5th best record in the league. So they did lose that game, but from that, they've unlocked this new identity of leaning into Draymond at the 5, more Kuminga, more Trace Jackson Davis, and just playing a little bit smaller, but really leveraging their offense and the shooting and the passing and the movement and all the stuff. Like, Draymond has helped unlock that, and he is their best interior defender despite only being 6'7". So he's been able to hold his own in most matchups defensively, outside of like a Jokic, which is just no one has an answer for him. There's also the Steph factor of Steph is. When he's on fire, there's no one like Steph in the league. He is one of the few guys that can match LeBron head to head in an elimination type format or in a series. Now, there's familiarity on both sides, obviously, with the Lakers having beaten the Warriors in 6 games last postseason, as well as the Lakers having beaten the Warriors in the 2021 play-in game, which was more of a LeBron AD familiarity with Golden State. But I think that factors in on both sides, where Steve Kerr is familiar with how to try and slow down LeBron, how to try and slow down AD. Draymond defends AD about as well as anyone in the league. He's in that conversation. He also defends LeBron reasonably well. But then the Lakers have also been able to slow down Steph. And last year, with their top blocking and funneling shooters to AD, they were able to really bother the Warriors offense and make it as inconsistent as we've seen it in quite some time. So you can make a case on either side in terms of like who has the edge. I do think it might come down to just home court advantage. And if that's the Lakers, then I would certainly pick them in this matchup. But again, looking at Golden State's recent success, this is a hot team, and maybe Steph Curry's injury derails that, or maybe it's just a bump in the road as they continue to ascend. But Golden State has been playing really well lately. Now, the rim protection is a concern, and they're 24th in defensive field goal percentage allowed at the rim. It has been better since Draymond has been at center, but I'm looking at just the totality of their season. Of course, an elite three-point shooting team, 3rd in makes per 100 possessions, 3rd in attempts per 100 possessions. And just the way I view this is, if we're going to give LeBron and AD the benefit of the doubt because of their track record, because of their experience, because of them winning a championship together, I think Golden State deserves the same level of respect. And I know some Laker fans don't love that because of the Lakers-Warriors rivalry on social media and Southern California versus Northern California and LA versus San Francisco and all that stuff. But from an objective perspective, if I'm the Lakers, I think I would rather face Dallas, New Orleans, or Sacramento. I see more holes in those teams, more question marks than a healthy Warriors team. Of course, this is a healthy Warriors team. If Steph misses a bunch of time or is obviously out for some reason, Golden State plummets to the number 1 matchup that you want. And maybe they are, just because of home court advantage and the Lakers looking like they're going to have that edge in this matchup. A Steph Curry elimination game with how great he is. I don't love that thought. And this is a team that is familiar with the Lakers. They have had some success against them. I would give the Lakers the edge. I would pick them over all 4 teams so far. But this is one that I think gets a little bit closer to a coin flip. And finally, team number 5, which again means that this is the hardest team in the play-in mix, is the Phoenix Suns. So here's the Suns profile. They are 37-27. They are number 6 in the West. Home record of 21-14. They are 11th in offense, 13th in defense, 11th in net rating. So pretty close there to being top 10 on both sides of the ball. The season series is 3-2 Lakers, but the actual margin of the series is actually plus 17 Suns because of a couple blowout wins in the last 2 matchups. And the Suns are 17-18 against teams 500 and above. For those who have followed me throughout the season, be it on Hoops Tonight or other platforms, you know I'm high on the Suns. This was the team that I had number 2 in the West entering the season, just ahead of the Lakers. I had it Denver 1, Phoenix 2, Lakers 3. I was really high on the big 3, and we haven't seen much of them, but they are 14-7 in the 21 games that they played, which is a 55-win pace. That would actually have them at number 4 in the West, ahead of the Clippers. So this is a team that, when healthy, has been successful. They just haven't been healthy. Still, they are number 6 in the West. And as I just mentioned, they're a borderline top 10 team on both ends. Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, to me, are both top 12 guys who can be top 10 guys on a given night. They're the one team that can match the Lakers with that, in that I think those are the only 2 teams in the league that both have top 12 guys. They have a championship coach in Frank Vogel, a coach that's very familiar with LeBron and AD. They've won the last 2 games against the Lakers. They have some momentum in the matchup, and they held various leads in their first 3 losses, including, remember that fourth quarter in the first matchup, second game of the season, Lakers home opener. They blow a 12-point lead to start the fourth quarter. That's without Devin Booker and without Bradley Beal. So basically, when KD's off the floor, they get killed in that matchup. But they've led the Lakers by 12 points or more in 4 of the 5 matchups. So even in the 3 games that they lost, they were all by single digits. They were all close. And in 2 of those 3, Phoenix held double-digit leads. So while I think the Lakers have some clear advantages over the Suns with their rebounding, with their size, and with LeBron and AD's ability to score in the paint against this group, I also think Yusuf Nurkic has outplayed Anthony Davis a couple times in this season series. Kevin Durant and Devin Booker are really difficult covers. As we just saw, the Lakers' game plan of trying to double and trap those guys didn't work. So the Lakers have some game planning issues right now that they're going to have to figure out. And the matchup before that, they were absolutely waxed in LA by the buzzsaw of the Suns' big 3. So I think the Suns, to me, are the best team in this group. They also provide the toughest matchup for the Lakers just because of their perimeter firepower. They're actually a good rebounding team. And again, they profile as borderline. They're just outside the top 10 in both offense and defense. To me, Phoenix is the one team from this group, aside from the Lakers, that has multi-round potential. I mentioned LeBron and AD. I mentioned Steph Curry and just a certain level of respect. Like, I think Kevin Durant deserves that level of respect. Devin Booker has helped the team make the finals before. They did push Denver to 6 last year. So there is some track record of this duo, as well as each player individually having some playoff success. I do think Phoenix is the toughest matchup for the Lakers in the play-in mix. And that one, I think it could go either way. I would honestly lean towards Phoenix if they have their big 3 healthy, and just given what we've seen from that group when healthy. But Lakers have beaten them 3 out of 5. Like, I could see that the Suns have blown multiple fourth quarter leads against the Lakers. Like, I could see it going either way, but this one to me is the hardest of these 5. All right, so now we get into the top 4 seeds in the West, and this is where the controversy potentially lies, because my easiest matchup for the Lakers is actually the Minnesota Timberwolves. And hear me out. First, let's quickly go through their profile. The Timberwolves are 44-21. They're 3rd in the West. They are 23-8 at home, 18th in offense, 1st in defense, 3rd in net rating. The season series is 2-1 in favor of Minnesota. However, the Lakers are +2 in the scoring margin. Minnesota is 24-16 against teams 500 and above. So why Minnesota and why not OKC? I think OKC is the sexy pick right now for easiest Lakers matchup among the top 4. LA is 3-1 against them in the regular season. Anthony Davis has a clear physical advantage over Chet Holmgren and the rest of OKC's smaller front line. But when it comes down to it, I just think Minnesota is really going to miss Karl Anthony Towns. And from what I was told last night at the game, it seems very unlikely that he's going to be back for a potential first round matchup with the Lakers. And as we saw in the game last night, and I know they were missing Rudy Gobert and Kyle Anderson and Monte Morris in addition to Towns. So they were missing several key rotation players, including a starter, their second best player if Towns is out. But I just don't know where Minnesota is going to get the offense from. Like last night, it basically was Anthony Edwards and Naz Reid. And aside from that, no one else really hurt the Lakers consistently. And Rudy Gobert will help a bit with just his size, his pick and roll ability, his offensive rebounding, his finishing around the rim. But when comparing Minnesota and OKC, I think OKC has the edge as a tougher opponent with Shea being better than Anthony Edwards. He's in the MVP conversation. I just think he's a more complete offensive player and the tougher player to defend. And then looking at the rest of the matchups, like Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren are both tougher to match up with than anyone else on Minnesota from a defensive perspective and just what they're bringing offensively. Again, with no Karl Anthony Towns. So the Towns absence takes away Minnesota's best shooter, their second best scorer, a guy who you have to account for on the glass, a guy who can score in the post. We've seen Rui defend him well in previous matchups, but Towns has given the Lakers problems at times over the past couple of years. I mean, losing your second best player, an all-star big man. And I know Karl Anthony Towns doesn't have a good postseason reputation. He has had some stinkers, and maybe there is a Ewing theory here where Minnesota can play a bit better without him. I just looked at that fourth quarter when their offense was completely stuck in the mud. They couldn't do anything. And the Lakers deserved credit for that defensive performance in the fourth quarter. But part of that was just Minnesota's available personnel. And even when they've been healthy, they have been a below average offense. I just think taking away another one of their big men, which it limits their ability to do two big lineups. Like you can go Gobert and Reed. You can throw Kyle Anderson in there. But like if you start going down to like Luka Garza, you see what happens when he's playing a critical role for your team. Losing a big, losing another rebounder, losing your second best scorer, losing a pick and pop option, losing arguably your best shooter, probably your best shooter, like all those things, that's just a significant loss for Minnesota that just makes them the more attractive option in comparison with OKC. And even with their statistical profile being really good, I look at they're an elite defense, they're a really good rebounding team, but they don't have the same advantages against the Lakers that they do against most other teams. Like against most other teams, Minnesota is the giant, physically imposing front line that's just dominating the paint. And they can't do that against an Anthony Davis, LeBron James, Rui Hachimura, Christian Wood when he comes back. Like that, I mean, it's going to be close to a wash. The teams are probably going to play each other close to even from that regard. But one of Minnesota's big strengths is their size, and the Lakers can negate that with some of their bigger lineups. And also, I think this kind of forces Darvin's hand into playing some bigger lineups because you're not going to go with Torian at the 4 or as many 3-guard lineups necessarily against this big Minnesota team when you have a 6'9" Jaden McDaniels at small forward and a 6'6" Anthony Edwards at shooting guard. Like this is a big team aside from the point guard spot. And it almost forces the Lakers into their strengths of having to play bigger and meeting size with size. So I think it's close. It's close because the Thunder are such a good matchup for the Lakers in many ways. But I just think the loss of Towns swings this one for me. I think if I'm the Lakers, I would rather face the Timberwolves in round 1. If it's not obvious at this point, team number 2 is the Oklahoma City Thunder. Again, most people would probably have them number 1, but I think Minnesota is a slightly easier matchup. But the Thunder are 44-19, number 1 in the West. Home record of 26-6. That's another factor here. They are a better home team than Minnesota. As someone who has been to both arenas multiple times, Minnesota has an underrated home crowd, but Oklahoma City is just like that's a top 5 home court in the league with how loud and crazy that arena can get. 3rd in offense, 4th in defense, 2nd in net rating. So that's the other thing that kind of gets lost with Oklahoma City. They're top 5 in offense and defense. And I know it hasn't always looked that way against the Lakers in those matchups, but this is the only team in the league aside from Boston that is top 5 in offense and defense. And that makes them a legitimate championship contender. And I know that the Lakers have a significant physicality advantage over them, but I think OKC is a better team than people are depicting them as. Season series is 3-1 Lakers, but the margin is only +5 Lakers. So that's another thing here is that, yes, the Lakers have won 3 of the 4, but the overall margin has been pretty close. Thunder are 24-13 against teams that are 500 and above. Another factor that has been under discussed in these 4 games is the Thunder have shot poorly in 3 of the 4 games. And as we know, the Lakers have one of the worst 3-point shooting defenses in the league. It's part of their scheme to give up shots to certain shooters, to help from one pass away, and really to sell out stopping elite scorers like Shea or protecting the rim at the expense of potentially giving up threes. Yet the Thunder have only shot above 33.3% in 1 of the 4 matchups. And for context, they lead the NBA in 3-point shooting percentage at 39%. So while they are closer to league average from a volume perspective, from a percentage perspective, they're an elite 3-point shooting team. You can look at it a couple ways. Part of it's shot luck, and they should regress positively against the Lakers in a potential series. Another part of it is the physicality that the Lakers have, maybe wears on their legs, and them having to defend LeBron drives, AD drives, battle in the paint. Like that wear and tear can affect you progressively throughout a game. And another part of it could be the Lakers forcing them into being a higher volume 3-point shooting team, which OKC isn't as comfortable with. If you look at their opponent splits, they've attempted the 4th most threes against the Lakers this season. So that is an indication that they are getting them up against the Lakers. They're just not really making them. And I don't know if that would sustain in a 7-game series. And that's a factor here. While the Lakers have shot the 3 much better recently, they don't have the firepower to go shot for shot with some of the elite shooting teams. It's just not part of their DNA. They're still going to prioritize getting to the rim, getting to the free throw line. So this to me is a potential X factor of, is OKC going to continue to force up threes and not shoot the ball as well? Or will they regain the shooting that they've showed against most opponents? Because again, they've attempted the 4th most threes against the Lakers, but they've shot the 6th worst percentage that they've shot against any team this season. So there's kind of a push and pull there with the 3-point battle. And if OKC starts making their threes, all of a sudden, I think they have a good chance at winning this series. Still, I would pick the Lakers, and as of right now, I would pick the Lakers over both the Timberwolves and the Thunder. By process of elimination, team number 3 has to be the LA Clippers. I think you guys know who I'm going with at number 4, but the LA Clippers are 41-22. They are 4th in the West, home record of 22-9, 4th in offense, 14th in defense, 6th in net rating. Season series is 3-1 Lakers, but the margin is only +1 Lakers. So again, Clippers had a blowout win. Lakers have had several close wins. Versus 500 and above, Clippers are 20-19, so barely above 500. Really, all these games have been close. They almost remind me a little bit of the Phoenix games where the Clippers have blown a couple of big leads against the Lakers. They also have a championship coach in Ty Lue and one of the only players in Kawhi Leonard who's been able to match LeBron in individual series. Ivica Zubac is also another one of those big men that gives Anthony Davis some problems. He's a big body. He's had 20 rebound efforts against the Lakers before. He can finish in the paint, get offensive rebounds, just a big bruiser for AD to deal with. They're an elite offense that can take advantage of the Lakers' porous defense. Not having Russell Westbrook potentially, I think, is actually an advantage for the Clippers. He had not been playing as well recently, and I think he tries to do a little too much in general, but especially in the Lakers matchup. So there's almost an addition by subtraction element of not having him potentially in a Lakers Clippers first round matchup or second round match. We'll see. And I just think that the Clippers are better than Oklahoma City and this version of Minnesota. They have 3 legitimate stars, and they can play big, they can play small, they can play fast, they can play slow. So I just think this team is really good, and I think they're a harder matchup for the Lakers than the other 2 teams. The big thing with the Clippers has always been health, and there's no assurances that they will be healthy come playoff time. But if they are healthy, I think this would be a really fun series. We'd finally get Battle LA. And I think it would be close. I think it would be a 6 or 7 game series in either direction. And number 4, you knew it was coming. The Denver Nuggets, 44-20, number 2 in the West, home record 26-6, 7th in offense, 10th in defense. So they are in that top 10 on both ends club, fifth in net rating. Season series is 3-0 Nuggets plus 30 in Denver's favor. So that ties Sacramento for the best margin against the Lakers of any of these teams. Versus 500 and above teams, they're 23-16. And I'm honestly going to keep this one short just because Denver is won 8 straight against the Lakers. Nikola Jokic is the best player in the world. He's the MVP frontrunner right now. The Lakers have been unable to figure out Denver's crunch time offense or the Jokic-Murray two-man game. They're in every game, but then the last 5 minutes happen and it becomes like a bad cartoon. It's like Tom and Jerry, Charlie Brown with the football. Like the Lakers just can't seem to execute against the Nuggets. And I think if these two teams matched up, the Lakers would finally find a way to win one game. I think it's probably a 5-game series, but I honestly think it's closer to being a sweep than it is a 6 or 7 game series. Like I don't see the Lakers pushing Denver beyond 5 games. So this is just a brutal matchup for LA. It's potentially the 1-8 or 2-7 matchup, depending on where they finish in the standings. I mean, this is just a really bad matchup. Like they're more organized than the Lakers. They're better at executing. You know, similar to the Kings, there are 2 players in particular, Murray and Jokic, with the Kings, Fox and Sabonis, that the Lakers just haven't been able to figure out how to consistently slow down. I think one lineup I'd like to see in this matchup is Anthony Davis, LeBron James, Rui Hachimura, Jared Vanderbilt, and Austin Reeves. You put Austin Reeves on KCP, you put Jared Vanderbilt on Michael Porter Jr., Rui Hachimura on Aaron Gordon, LeBron on Jamal Murray, and Anthony Davis on Nikola Jokic. You switch the two-man game and the pick and rolls and the dribble handoffs with Jokic and Murray. You have Rui Hachimura battling Aaron Gordon in the paint and just trying his best to at least hold his own. Gordon has physical advantage over him. He's a bit bigger. He's a bit stronger. He's more athletic. Lakers need to like punch Rui in the chest a little bit and like get him going for that matchup. Vando on MPJ. MPJ is bigger, but Vando has length and athleticism. He can at least contest him better than an Austin Reeves or a Dinwiddie or a Taurean Prince. Like MPJ can just shoot over those guys. And then Austin, with his chasing ability, with his foot speed, can follow KCP around screens. And like, it's not perfect. I still think that Denver has physical advantages at arguably all 5 positions. Not LeBron on Murray, but like Murray is quick and he can hit tough contested shots. But aside from that, like you could make the case they have an advantage at the other 4 positions from a physicality perspective. I just think for the Lakers, like you got to try something, and going bigger with Vando and Rui on the wings next to LeBron, AD, and Austin, like all of a sudden you have better rebounding, you have a bit more size, you have a bit more versatility to switch if you need to. You are going with Vando over D'Lo, but I'm not sure who D'Lo guards in crunch time in against their starting lineup. I guess you could go D'Lo over Austin if you want to try that. I just think Austin's the better defender and better at chasing players around screens. So that's my like thing I'd like to see at the end of a Denver Lakers game. Anthony Davis has actually talked about this. He feels like the Lakers need to switch more in that matchup, try and keep 2 in the primary action with Jokic and Murray, not help as much because that's when Jokic just picks you apart. And if those guys are going to score one-on-one against LeBron and AD, which we've seen them do and which they're capable of, then so be it. Like that's how the Lakers lose that matchup. But I think they need to put 2 guys in the action that can actually switch and have a reasonable shot at least making things difficult for those 2 guys. And really the only 2 guys that can do that are AD and LeBron. Like Rui can't switch onto Jamal. Vando, I think, is a little too light to battle Jokic in the paint. LeBron has actually defended Jokic well, arguably the best of any of the Lakers front court players. And he has the foot speed to dance with Jamal a bit, though again, Jamal's probably going to win that battle more often than not. And then AD, like he's your best defender. And Jokic can take him off the dribble. He can post him up, but like you got to at least try with that. And then we've seen AD envelop guards on the perimeter. Again, Murray's so skilled, so quick, such a difficult shot maker that like, I don't expect AD to shut him down, but I think that gives you the best opportunity to at least slow those guys down and not give them everything that they want, which is exactly what they've gotten for the most part in crunch time. But that'll do it for this episode. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching. For those watching on YouTube, be sure to drop a comment with your rankings, 1 through 5 for the 5 play-in teams and 1 through 4 for the top 4 seeds in the West. Again, my tentative rankings. I will be updating this list later in the season as we get closer to the end of the regular season and playing time and the playoffs. But my rankings, again, tentatively are in the play-in mix: Dallas 1, New Orleans 2, Sacramento 3, Golden State 4, and Phoenix 5. And then among the top 4 in the West, potential playoff opponents, I have Minnesota 1, Oklahoma City 2, the Clippers 3, and Denver 4. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know on Twitter. Let me know on YouTube. I'll be back on Friday with a guest discussing how the Lakers game against the Kings went on Wednesday night. Some big picture Laker topics. So be on the lookout for that. I will talk to you soon.